Everybody, this is Dream, and today we got the NASCAR race, the Hollywood Casino 400 Cup race, the second race of the playoffs in NASCAR. We have a really good set of drivers available in this particular race, and all sorts of different starting positions than normal. But this track is considered, it's an aging track, and some drivers are really good here, others are not. And so I've gone through them. I actually have the top 5 drivers that are in Vegas odds of winning the race on this, which is a little odd. But 3 of them are starting outside the top 20, which is kind of crazy. But, you're going to have to pick around and figure out who you're going to utilize in order to make the best bang for your buck kind of lineup. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Denny Hamlin is obviously the favored driver for this track. He's been really good here over his career. He often doesn't qualify that well here, but he always seems to finish in the top 15, and he does have several wins, and so he's obviously the odds-on favorite, and he's starting in 22nd, or 25th rather. He's somebody that has a really high potential to have a lot of bonus points. Another guy that's kind of in the same position as Kyle Busch. He kind of has the same history here, only he usually starts better, but he's really only starting 20th, so he's still pretty far back. Makes him very interesting because he has lots of upside at this particular track. Even if he started in the top 5, he'd be somebody you would potentially use, but in this particular case, he's even more usable simply because he's in 20th to start. And we get that nice juicy bonus starting in the top, from getting those points that you get, like a point for each position you move up. So we really like that. The next guy I like is Kyle Larson. He's also third favorite. He's third in the He's third in favoritism for winning the race. Now, he has dominated this race in the past, and that's one of the reasons I'm including him here. But his starting position does kind of cap his total points available, and with a couple other guys starting outside the top 20 that are also favored, it's really hard to put him at the top of the list. But he is somebody you have to consider because it's unlikely that he's going to have a finish outside the top 10. It's just that he's going to be capped on his points because he doesn't have that many points places he can move up. Other than the only bonus really that he's going to get is if he can actually pull out a top 2 or 3 or even a win. The next guy I really like is Chase Elliott, who's also starting outside the top 20 and 22nd, and he's 4th favored on the list in Vegas. It's quite crazy to have 3 guys that are favored in the top 4 to be starting outside the top 20 in this race. So obviously he has a lot of potential to maneuver up and get a quality finish. You can see at this other race that he did, the Autoports 400, he started 23rd and finished 5th, and he got 62 points. I mean, you can really gain some points, more so than just about anything other than just winning the race from like in the top 5 or something. You can get more points this way than you can from just about any other way, and he definitely has the car to do it. The next guy I like is Martin Truex Jr. He's just been really solid here at this track, and his starting position obviously helps him a little bit, but not as much as some of the other guys, but he is somebody you have to consider. You basically want to consider, you want to get the guys who you think are going to win. Obviously, if they're going to start in the top 10, they've got to be the guy you think is going to win the race, or at least in the top 5, and top 10 to start in the top and finish in the top 2 or 3. And then, of course, these other guys who are favored to win, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to mix and match who you think is going to have a good chance to get into the top 5 from those back tier positions. So the next guy I like is Christopher Bell. Obviously, he's starting in 4th place. He's had a really good career at this track. And he can usually win. He does really good at this track, so I don't think he's in a bad position, except for the fact that he's starting in 4th, and so he's capped on his total points scored. But he could still get into the 40s if he can maintain that position throughout the race. The next guy I like is going to be Kevin Harvick. And he's going to be the last guy above the Mendoza line of 83.33 that we need. He's been really good as of late. Now, last week he crashed out because his car caught on fire. NASCAR supposedly has found a way to fix that, I guess. I don't know for sure. That's just a completely random occurrence. That's not something to really it wasn't really anything he did. So we just have to kind of hope that the cars don't blow up again this next race. But that's what happens, I guess, in NASCAR. He's been really good at this track though, and he has had a lot of good finishes. And his starting position actually gives him a decent bonus, starting 14th. So he's somebody I definitely think is useful here. And outside of the race where his car exploded on him for no good reason, he's been racing really well as of late and has been really fast. So now that we're going to get below the Mendoza line of 83.33, we're going to take a look at Alex Bowman, who starts in the top three. He's actually been really good at this track, and obviously his starting position can hurt him, but he could also stay out at the front of the track race the whole way and get that top 5 finish. And if that's the case, then he'll still get a decent amount of points, in the 40s or 50s. And so he's somebody viable. It's just a little bit, his total points is capped because he can't really gain too many positions from here. So then the next guy that I like is Ty Gibbs. Where is he? He's starting in 16th. Now he'll be racing, Bubba Wallace's car, and so that gives him a little bit of an advantage because his car's pretty good. And he's been good at this track in the Xfinity where he won, but he's never raced this track in the Cup car, so we'll have to see. But I think his starting position and price is probably decent enough that you can give him a chance if you need a flyer at that price point. He's probably the best guy that's around the 7,000 price range. And he's also a 33-1 favorite, which is good for 16th on the board. So, obviously Vegas thinks that he has some potential to move up a little bit, being the 16th favorite and starting 16th. They think he's at least going to stay in that range or maybe move up a little. So hopefully he can do that. Brad Keselowski is next. Sorry. He's starting 26th, which is actually pretty good for him. He's always been good at this track, and his starting position is definitely favorable. And he also did good in the race earlier the year at this track, so we know that he has good stuff here. And even, it hasn't been his best year, obviously, as you can see some of his finishes, but he's been good at this particular track, and so we like him in this position, and he's pretty inexpensive at $7,000. So the next guy I like is Michael McDowell. He's overall just been pretty good as of late. Obviously, a couple exceptions, like at Daytona and stuff. But in the last 7 races here, he didn't move much up in the race, but both of those were top tier finishes. And so, being that he's starting farther back, he has some chance to maneuver up, because I think his car is good enough to be a top 10, top 15 car at the end of the race if he can avoid the wrecks and whatever else. So the next guy that I like is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He has actually been he was really good in the one race that he's raced here this year. He went from 36th to 8th in that race, and that was in I think it was this Advent Health 400. I believe that's the right race. I have the stat down, so I think that might be the Kansas one. And you can see he scored 65 points. Obviously, that's a huge upside if he can repeat that. It's not guaranteed by any stretch, but he's still in a good position to potentially do that because he's starting so far back, and his stuff is definitely capable. As he's seen throughout the season, he's had some good finishes. It's just a matter of, the tracks that he's good at, and this is one of them. Noah Gragson is a guy that, he just won the Xfinity race, obviously short tracking, but he's really good at this kind of track, and so obviously he's not got the most ideal car, but in the Cup race, earlier this year, he went from 28th to 18th, I believe. Yep. So, he should be able to do a similar situation in this track, and he got 35 points. Now, when you're paying $6,100 for somebody, you're just trying to get 30 points out of them, and if you can get a better points, then that's great, but there's no guarantees, obviously. But if you can get 35 points out of him, which he can do at this track, then then you can definitely take that to the bank. And then the final guy, and this is the Super Hail Mary option. I just think he's the best of the guys at the very bottom that you could potentially pay, almost minimum prices for, is Ty Gilliland. He has decent upside here. He could potentially sneak a top 25 finish. He has done okay at this track. He got 25th last time here and got 20 points. So I think that's probably where his cap is. And his starting position is right about the same spot. Most of the other drivers that are in the bottom part of the field have just never historically done anything at this track. He's run a pretty good amount of races, so he's kind of in the position where he's actually been able to maneuver this car around this particular track the best. And so of these low-level drivers, he's probably my favorite one. I would have probably liked Justin Haley more if he started at the very back, but he's a little bit farther up than I would probably like. But overall, I think it's a pretty good race. I think we got some good drivers that we can utilize, and I think that there's some good options available. It's going to be hard to figure out how to get who into the track, which drivers you want in the track, just because of the way the pricing is and so many of the top tier guys starting outside the top 20. But I think you've got enough value that you can probably work in one or two of those guys at the very top and then mix in the middle to get a good, solid setup. So with that said, thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing, and have a nice day.